Good morning, eighth grade. The when I start these videos, it does a little countdown there, but sometimes it starts recording before the countdown runs out, which makes me wonder why they do the countdown. It seems pointless, but point being, if I stood there staring at the camera like an idiot for the first 8 seconds or so of the video in silence and it got really awkward, I apologize. But I was waiting for the countdown to go. If not, then I wasted this time awkwardly. So either way, we're all right. This should be posting on the 29th, Monday. I'm recording this the Friday before the 20. Today's the 26th. I just got here. It's 8 in the morning. None of that matters. I think section 4, I think is one I did last year when the pandemic started. So I might just repost that, but it'll have some dated references and stuff, and it'll be from my house and all that stuff. And I'm going to check to make sure it's up to snuff and make sure I don't need to re-record it. But I'll you'll see that one way or another on Wednesday. Friday of this week, which would be April 2nd. There's no school. That's not a remote day. And then the following Monday, the day after Easter, there's no school. And so when you add all those days up, that leaves us with a week from Wednesday is going to be when our test lands, barring any unforeseen circumstances. And there could be, we've learned that in the last year, if nothing else, right? So we're talking about the post-World War I world, which is a tongue twister, which is why I slowed down. And, the roaring 20s or the jazz age, whatever you want to refer to it. I think the section 4 title is the jazz age. I'm sorry, the roaring 20s. The chapter's called the jazz age, but it's known as both or either. The idea is that things are getting better. They're going up and up and up and up and up. And a lot of people get fooled by this into the idea that things are going to just grow forever. And the reality is things don't really work that way, as all the people that bought GameStop stock found out recently. Things just don't grow. So immediately after World War I, an economic downturn, a recession, hung around for a little while, but then the economy began a steady growth that lasted most of the 1920s. Wars generally, you don't want to use this as a reason to go to war, but they generally do promote economic growth. There usually is some growth that follows a war. It's not always immediately, but sometimes it takes a few years. But employment goes up, wages usually go up, and so on. The gross national product, that is the if you add up everything, all the economy of a country, all the things that are manufactured, bought, sold, imports, exports, everything, you add that up, that's the GNP, the gross national product, the total amount of dollars that we're dealing with in America or any other country. But of course, we're talking about America specifically for our purposes. Okay, but over this decade, the GNP rose by about 30%, and that's a pretty incredible jump in not that long of a time period. A lot of this was because of advances in technology, and we've talked about some of those things in previous chapter. I think all the way back in chapter 8 by this point. But, the Model T, of course, and indoor electricity, indoor plumbing is coming a long way pretty quickly. It did exist before this, but there are rapid advances in the not only technology, but the cost of the technology and the availability. Okay. You're much more likely at this time, at the end of World War I, to see a indoor plumbing in a middle class or lower person's home than you would before. Before this, toilets were a sign. Indoor toilets, running toilets were a sign of affluence, of wealth. So before World War I, and electricity, the same thing. Just like toilets. About 30% of the nation's factories are run by electricity. By the end of the decade, you've more than doubled that. And so 7 out of every 10 home now has plugins and now has electric lights that you could flip on when you enter a room. And that's a big change in people's lives, of course. Electricity is not only more available, but it's cheaper to produce than steam power, which was the prevailing powering method of the day before World War One. Okay, and of course that's why it becomes widely available, because you can manufacture, distribute, and use it for I don't want to say cheap, but less expensive. Okay, and by lowering these costs, companies could lower prices and increase profits, which is an equation for success. If you can make things cost less and still make your profits go up, that's the idea. Okay, and that's usually a win-win for everybody, customers and businesses. Things don't often work out that way, but if you do, it's a good thing. Scientific management becomes a thing. Experts hire new methods to produce things the most efficiently, meaning as quickly as they can for as little money as they can. Then you want to find that sweet spot between rushing out junk that'll break and manufacturing as quickly as you can, and cutting costs as thinly as you can by still putting out a decent product. Okay, the assembly line mass production method that Henry Ford had invented is now becoming basically standard in almost every factory, not just for cars, but for any business that you can think of. Okay, and this is still the standard. If you get hired at a factory that builds cell phones, okay, you're not going to be required to build a cell phone from the ground up. That takes an incredible amount of expertise. You're just going to be trained to do one specific job, put one chip in one place, or put the screen, something like that. They also realized that not treating workers as if they were animals or slaves or something like that, it led to things going up. The worry was, for the longest time, that if we let these people do things like take bathroom breaks or eat food, that we're going to get less stuff done during that. And people found out that even if people work less total time, they will accomplish more if they are comfortable, if they're happy, if they're fed, if they have used the potty and stuff like that. And it makes sense to you and me, but at that time people didn't see it that way. Incidentally, Amazon's going through a big thing right now. There's reports everywhere that their warehouse workers are having to pee in bottles and stuff like that, and they came out and denied it. And then literally yesterday, some internal documents from Amazon were leaked that confirmed that they do in fact know that people are peeing in bottles on their floors and stuff like that. And so now it's become a big labor issue. So that's something to keep an eye on. If you I've been paying attention mostly to the boat stuck in the canal, but anyway. By the 1920s, more than 60% of American households had electricity. You're getting refrigerators, stoves, dishwashers, things like that, that really become cheap enough to be accessible to your average home, but also really pay for themselves when you consider the amount of free time they open up for the people that own them. Businesses, of course, are starting to be able to ship things. And so the idea of statewide or nationwide advertising campaigns becomes more of a thing. Okay, if you were even a big business, you would mostly be localized in one area across a few states at best. But now, due to automobiles and due to the growth of trains and the ability for us in refrigerated cars and the ability for us to ship things easily with less breakage and with less spoilage for food, nationwide companies are growing. And so installment buying becomes a thing, which is where you basically buy things on credit. Credit it can get people in trouble. If when you turn 18, you're going to start getting credit cards in the mail. My best advice would be, if you're going to use them, to pay them entirely off at the end of the month. I know people in college that got several $1,000s in debt because you get a card and you take it, you could still be broke. You take it to Walmart and you pick up a PS5 and you walk out and you hand them the card and they swipe it and then you get to leave with it. And you're like, well, holy guacamole, I don't have any money. Now I have a PlayStation 5. And then you get a bill the first month and it says the minimum payment's only $20, and you're like, this is great. I can do $20. You pay $20, and then you get the bill the next month, and you do not owe $480. You owe $508. I only spent $500. I know, but that's interest. That's where the catch is. And so if you don't pay it off all immediately at once, that interest grows and grows and grows and grows. If you keep making the minimum payment, it can be very difficult to get out from underneath that. Obviously, automobiles became hugely popular. Detroit becomes known as Motor City. The entire economy of America basically revolved around cars. And when you consider all the things that go into making and using cars, that's a lot of different industries. The book lists the things that go into making a car, like rubber for the tires, the glass for the windshield, and steel for the chassis or body of the car. That's a lot of different industries that are growing based on the use of automobiles. That's before you get into gas station and convenience marts and growing the highway system and all this stuff. And so the car really grows the American economy by itself. Almost 4 million Americans work for auto companies or in auto-related jobs. Detroit, like I said, was becoming known as Motor City. Henry Ford gets his prices down, and basically most people can afford a Model T, and he also takes the then considered radical step of paying his workers $5 a day, which of course is nothing nowadays. If you make $5 a day now, that's not great. Minimum wage, in fact, federal minimum wage is over $8 per hour, not per day. So $5 a day is nothing then, but at that time, that was considered to be a very livable wage. You can make a living on $5 a day, live not in a tenement building, live more comfortably than those people that are making $1 or $2 a day at their factories. And so that really gave Henry Ford a leg up in recruiting good employees. Like I said, gas stations, rest stops, steel, rubber, glass, vacation tourism became a big thing. You think of whatever tourist town you and your family may have visited in the past. The most famous example, of course, is Disney World in Orlando. That, places like Orlando become a thing. The tourism industry becomes a thing because now people can go. Back in 1865, they didn't have Disney World because nobody from Christopher was going to go to Orlando, Florida. It would take, you would have to go by horseback, and people aren't just willing to invest that amount of time. But now you can drive there in under a day, of course, airplanes coming pretty soon are going to make it even faster. Farmers are having difficulties. Europe is back on the table when it comes to competing with them to buy and sell crops. Okay, obviously we weren't getting corn from Europe during the middle of World War I. Nobody was going to be like, hey, stop shooting for a second. I got to harvest this corn or whatever. That doesn't work that way. And so European farming really went down because they couldn't farm. They were in the middle of a war. And so our farmers really reaped the benefits during the actual war. But now that it's over, okay, Europe is getting back in the mix, and that causes, more produce in the market. More produce in the market and more competition is less opportunity for our farmers to sell it. Okay, and so farm income dropped. Many farmers lost their farms entirely. Railroad workers and coal miners become less necessary as people, as technology begins to do a lot of the work for them. People talk about laws and regulations in the Southern Illinois coal mine shutting things down, and in large part that's true. But another huge problem is that when my grandpa worked in the coal mines in the 1980s, they could harvest the same amount of coal today with a fraction of the people, just because the machinery and technology is advancing a lot. And this is the same type of deal here. Things are becoming, I wouldn't say back then necessarily automated, but a lot less labor intensive based on the technology that exists. Anyway, sorry for the lack of videos for the last couple of weeks. The grade period for the third 9 weeks was ending, and it was, I would say I was running around with my hair on fire, but I don't have hair, but you get the idea. It was chaos for a while. So hopefully I will be back on a regular schedule making more videos, even though the amount of you that exist out there to watch them is dwindling, but still it gives me an opportunity to talk to you more often. Attendance question of the day is, let's see, what is your favorite type brand of shoe? If you had unlimited budget and you could buy any brand of shoe, what would it be? Nike, New Balance, Under Armour, whatever. Hey Dudes are very popular right now. That's all well and good. If you don't care, just put any shoe is fine. That's fine. I just need to know for attendance that you watch the video. Have a good day. Keep washing your hands. Mask up. All that good stuff. And I will see you next time, probably in a couple days. Bye.